Imagine a typical Tuesday morning in South Beach, Florida. The sun is just rising over the Atlantic, joggers are on the boardwalk, and the city is waking up. But 300 miles to the south, inside a rusted, nondescript warehouse at the port of Mario, Cuba, the roof suddenly retracts. A hydraulic lift raises a canister that looks like a standard shipping container, but it isn't. It tilts to a 90-degree angle. At 6:03 a.m., U.S. early warning satellites detect a massive thermal spike. A blinding flash illuminates the Caribbean sky as a rocket engine ignites. But this is not a slow-moving ballistic missile from the Cold War era. This is a 3M-22 Zircon hypersonic cruise missile. It accelerates to Mach 9 instantly. That is nearly 7,000 miles per hour. The radar operator at Key West Naval Air Station stares at his screen in disbelief. The computer calculates the trajectory and the time to impact. The number flashing on his monitor is terrifying: 120 seconds. Local air raid sirens. Before the first local air raid sirens. Before the first siren even reaches its full pitch, the missile has already crossed the Florida Straits. Welcome to the Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. But this time, the physics have changed, and time itself has run out. In 1962, when the Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, President John F. Kennedy had a window of opportunity. The Soviet R-12 rockets took roughly 15 to 20 minutes to reach Washington, D.C. That was a terrifyingly short time, but it was enough to verify the threat, move the president to a secure bunker, and get the Strategic Air Command bombers into the air. It allowed for a frantic but human decision-making process. In our 2026 scenario, that window has slammed shut. A hypersonic missile launched from Cuba reaches Miami in 2 minutes. It reaches the Pentagon in less than 5. This completely breaks the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. If one side can decapitate the other's leadership before they can even pick up the red phone, deterrence fails. The United States is suddenly naked. How did we get here? How did Russia manage to park the world's most advanced weapons 90 miles from Key West without the CIA noticing? The operation was a masterclass in deception, a modern Trojan horse. For 6 months, Russian cargo ships had been docking in Mariel, officially delivering grain, construction materials, and humanitarian aid to a struggling Cuban economy. Buried deep within the manifests were dual-use industrial components. The missile launchers were not the massive, truck-mounted beasts we see in Red Square parades. They were the containerized versions of the Bastion P system, launchers disguised as standard 40-foot shipping containers. They can be placed on a truck, a train, or just left in a port-yard, indistinguishable from thousands of other boxes. U.S. intelligence was looking for silos. They were looking for massive concrete construction projects. They missed the threat sitting in plain sight until the thermal signature of a test engine burn gave it away. By then, it was too late. Intelligence estimates now confirm that at least 12 launchers are active, each capable of firing hypersonic missiles tipped with nuclear warheads. The reaction in Washington is a mix of panic and fury. The Joint Chiefs of Staff inform the President that current U.S. missile defenses, Patriot and THAAD batteries, are effectively useless in this scenario. These systems are designed to hit ballistic missiles that follow a predictable, high-arching parabola. They are like outfielders catching a fly ball, but a Zircon missile doesn't fly like a ball. It flies low, skimming the atmosphere, and maneuvers unpredictably at speeds that tear the air apart. Trying to hit it is like trying to shoot a bullet out of the air with another bullet, while the target is weaving like a fighter jet. With no defensive option, the president orders the only move left: a total naval quarantine of Cuba. It is a direct echo of 1962. The U.S. Second Fleet deploys immediately. The USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group steams south from Norfolk to block any further Russian shipments. Destroyers line up to form a steel wall across the Atlantic approaches. The message to Moscow is clear: turn your ships around or we sink them. But as the U.S. Navy tightens the noose, a new, silent horror emerges from the deep. Sonar operators aboard the destroyers begin picking up anomalies. It isn't the rhythmic cavitation of a propeller. It is a high-speed, deep-water drone signature. Intelligence realizes that the surface ships were just a distraction. While the world was watching the cargo ships, Russia had deployed the Belgorod submarine to the Caribbean, and it released its payload, the Poseidon. The Poseidon is an autonomous, nuclear-powered underwater drone the size of a school bus. It has unlimited range. It can sit on the ocean floor for months, silent and waiting. Its warhead is not designed to hit a specific building. It is a doomsday device. If detonated off the U.S. coast, it is designed to create a radioactive tsunami, contaminating hundreds of miles of coastline with cobalt-60, rendering cities like New York, Charleston, or Miami uninhabitable for decades. The U.S. admiral in charge of the blockade realizes his fleet is hostage. If he orders an attack on a Russian blockade runner, the Poseidons could be triggered. The U.S. Navy controls the surface of the ocean, but Russia has mined the ocean floor with nuclear traps. On the mainland, the news leaks. It always does. Social media explodes. Hashtag Miami 2 minutes trends globally within an hour. Panic is instantaneous and total. In 1962, people quietly stocked up on canned goods. In 2026, the information ecosystem amplifies fear into chaos. Interstate 95, the main artery of the East Coast, becomes a parking lot stretching for 500 miles. Millions of people try to flee the coastal cities simultaneously. Gas stations run dry in hours. The power grid flickers as everyone tunes in. The stock market crashes so hard that trading is suspended indefinitely. The illusion of American safety, the idea that two vast oceans protect the homeland from the wars of the old world, evaporates instantly. In the Situation Room, the options are grim. A preemptive strike on Cuba is on the table. The Air Force argues they can use stealth B-21 raiders to bomb the container sites before they launch. But the risk is catastrophic. If they miss even one launcher, or if the dead hand system automatically triggers the underwater Poseidon drones upon detecting seismic activity, the U.S. East Coast ceases to exist. Diplomatic channels are opened, but the tone has changed. This is not a negotiation between equals anymore. Russia holds a gun to America's head. The demands from the Kremlin are brutal. They don't just want the blockade lifted. They want a complete rollback of NATO infrastructure in Eastern Europe. They want the removal of American nuclear weapons from Germany and Turkey. They are using the Cuba leverage to rewrite the entire security architecture of Europe. For the first time in 80 years, the United States faces a true existential threat on its own soil. The president faces an impossible choice. Accept a humiliating diplomatic defeat that ends American global hegemony, or risk a nuclear exchange that starts with the vaporization of Miami. As the hours tick by, the standoff settles into a terrifying freeze. The world holds its breath. We are back on the brink, but this time, the technology is faster, the AI is making decisions, and the human element is being squeezed out of the loop. This scenario reveals a chilling truth about modern warfare. We spent decades building defenses against the last war, against slow bombers and ballistic arcs. We ignored the uncomfortable reality that technology has made geography irrelevant. In a world of hypersonic missiles and underwater drones, there is no such thing as over there. Everything is here, and here is just 5 minutes away from destruction. The crisis eventually de-escalates, as these things usually do, through back-channel deals that history books won't reveal for 50 years. But the damage is done. The psychological safety of the American continent is shattered. The real estate market in Florida collapses. The defense budget doubles, directed entirely at space-based sensors and lasers. The world enters a new, darker era, the age of hyperwar, where peace is maintained not by treaties, but by the terrifying knowledge that the end of the world is now faster than a pizza delivery.